Hi, friends. I'm Susan, and I was thinking that it's possible that I've had something in every issue of Little Patuxent Review, which is crazy. But when Mike Clark asks me to do something, I do it, and I miss him. And I'm sending out love to him right now. So I interviewed a poet and essayist named Leah Purpura who lives in Baltimore. And when she was a child in Long Island, she used to keep journals of words, quotes, song lyrics, and she would share them with all her friends. And she still keeps journals and she still has word lists in the back, words that she didn't know about, words that are 14 syllables, words that she needs to look up, and words that make connections for her. And she really turned her love of words into her life's work. She is the writer in residence at UMBC, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. She's a graduate of the Iowa Writers Workshop, and she won a Guggenheim and 4 pushcarts and a bunch of other stuff. And I was very lucky because I interviewed her in one of my favorite places, which is a garden. And this was her garden. She and a group of her neighbors had formed a community garden. And it was right by York Road. So it smelled like Popeyes. And it sounded like trucks backing up. And but there were also like bees and peas starting to come up. And it was a lovely setting. And the compost pile behind us gave us a lot of really good things to talk about, because we talked about that in relationship with words and how things in a compost pile and words can combine and make something completely different. And the marks that she makes on paper as words can relate to someone completely differently with a completely different set of compost. So she wrote in her essay, Blood Spots 3, a word used well is many-realmed and maps in all directions at once. So for her, words really do make connections between people and objects and memories and landscapes. She calls it likeness, making one thing kind of kin to something else. And she goes really against trend in poetry. She writes really short lines. She does not write like kind of memoir-centered lines. She kind of creates an image around a single topic, a leaf, just one leaf, or a cat that has killed a cardinal. And then her essays, on the other hand, really range widely. She discusses why she would like to be reincarnated as a buzzard. I'll get to that one in a minute. Or about the elegance of a spine seen through the open body of an autopsy. Or about the color of rain on a boardwalk that reminds her, it's called gunmetal, and it reminds her of her home in Baltimore. So she gets a kick out of hearing people say that her poetry is like an essay and her essays are like poetry. Her essays are unusual also in that she does huge dives into research. Like she actually went and watched 5 or 6 days of autopsies at the Baltimore morgue. She researches the diagrams of electrical lines and steam vents and sewer under the streets of Baltimore. So she really dives deeply into what she's writing about. She's also a person who thinks about the community. She's grieving really urgently about climate change and violence and the opioid crisis. But she doesn't just grieve. Like, she started this community garden and donates a lot of food to the food bank. And she does a writing workshop in the addiction center. And she goes out. She created this kind of neighborhood institution that doesn't just wait at the elementary school for people to come and talk to them, but goes out and talks to people where they are. She likes to say that she mourns globally and thrives locally. And she really is so rooted in Baltimore. She's trying to make it better in her words and her actions. And I'm going rogue. I'm not reading poetry. So you can read her poetry in the issue. I'm instead going to read from her book on likeness, and I'm going to read on coming back as a buzzard. Okay. I know coming back as a crow is a lot more attractive. If crows and buzzards do the same rough job, picking, tearing, cleaning up, who wouldn't rather return as a shiny blue crow with a mind for locks and puzzles, a strong voice and poem struck, sleek, familial, omen-bearing, full of morning and ardor and talk? Buzzards are nothing like this, but something other, complicated by strangeness and ugliness. They intensify my thinking. They look prehistoric, pieced together, concerned. I might simply say I feel closer to them, always have, and proceed, because really, as I turn it over, the problem I'm working on here, coming back as a buzzard, has not so much to do with buzzards after all. A buzzard is expected at the table. The rush would be over by the time I got there, and I, my lateness sanctioned, might rightfully slip in. I wouldn't saunter, nor blow in dramatically, flounce, as my grandmother would say. The road would be the dinner table. Just as the dinner table with its veering discussions is always a road somewhere. And others' distraction would resolve. Well, I would resolve it into a clean plate. I would be missed if I were not there. Not at first, not in the frenzy, but later. Without me, no outlines, no profiles come clear. The very idea of scaffolding is diminished. Without a chance to walk away from abundance, thus proving their wealth, none of the first eaters would be content with their portion. I make their bestowing upon the least of us possible. With me around, mishaps, side of the highway, over a cliff, more slowly dispensed by poison, do not have to be turned to a higher purpose. I step in, I make use of, and here I'm whittling away at the problem. As a buzzard, I'd know the end of a thing is precisely not that. Things go on in their way. My presence making the end of a beginning, reinterpreting the idea of abundance, allowing for the ever-giving nature of nature. I'd know these not as religious thoughts. It's that apportioned rightly, there's always enough, more than enough. Nothing but gifts on this poor, poor earth, says Milosz. That's Czeslaw Milosz, who understood perfectly the resemblance between dissolve and increase. Thanks very much. Thanks to LPR editors and staff